Let me know if y'all can hear me all right. I have my microphone unplugged, so should be working good now. So everybody, thanks for joining me this morning. Happy Friday, everybody. So we'll go ahead. Charles, thanks for the feedback there. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We will start with, let me zoom this in. There we go. All right. I apologize if I mispronounced your name, Rituparn S. So Rituparn S says, I have confusion over fluid spine setup along with ball position and weight distribution on legs while taking stance for clubs, namely from sand pitching wedge till 9-iron. This is mainly for approach shots to the green, 95 to 125 yards. Spine angle is basically going to be anywhere between 6 and 8 degrees at address. You can be a little bit more on the vertical side with shorter clubs. And the reason for that is it can help you promote a little bit more steeper angle of attack, which can be better for getting spin and things like that. But for the most part, you're just going to be in this 6 to 8 degrees angle away position. So I actually have a wedge right here, and my weight distribution is going to be evenly distributed, pretty much straight up balanced. So I'm going to be a little bit more angled away. I'm going to be balanced in my feet, and that's basically where I'm going to be. As far as ball position goes, let me angle this down. I wouldn't grab a ball here. So again, I'm going to be about 6 to 8 degrees angled away. And like I said, you can be more on the 6-degree side. You can be even a little bit more vertical than that, if that's what works best for you. The approach position with the spine isn't hugely important. It's not the most important part of the spine. The most important part of the spine angle is getting into that angled away position as you're coming into impact, that 18 to 25 degree angled away position. If you're getting in that position, then you're good. That's the main thing. But the reason why we tell you to get into this angled away position at address and stable up to the top is that it's so much easier to get into that most important position at impact if you're doing that. So again, 6 to 8 degrees angled away, you can be a little bit more on the vertical side, but 6 to 8 degrees angled away, that's basically what this is right here. And then weight evenly distributed, I'm having trouble saying that today for some reason, but weight evenly distributed, 50-50, totally balanced. You can have a little bit more weight on your lead side, not weight, but pressure on your lead side, and that's just to help you get momentum moving to your trail side. So that would be just to be able to shift your weight a little bit easier. It's not required, it's just something you can do, but pretty much as balanced is where you want to be. And with wedges, I like to play the ball in the middle of my stance. So basically my philosophy on ball position, it's super simple. You don't have to have a different ball position for every single club. Or the only times I change my ball position is if I'm going from a wedge to some other club that I'm hitting off the ground, or if I'm hitting my driver. The only other time other than that is if I'm hitting a fade or a draw. I might play it a little bit further up in my stance for fade, or if I'm trying to hit it high, I may play a little bit further up in my stance. If I'm trying to knock it down, hit it lower, and hit a draw, I might play a little bit further back in my stance. You just play it in your stance that allows you to hit the shot that you're trying to hit. But in general, with a wedge, I like to play it pretty much right in the middle of my stance. In general, with other clubs, I like to play it a little bit ahead of the middle of my stance, which would be basically straight down from the lead ear. That's going to put the ball a little bit ahead of the middle of your stance. With a wedge, it puts you about in the middle of your stance. And the reason why I do that with the wedge is that it helps me hit a little bit more down on the golf ball. But yeah, I wouldn't try to overcomplicate it too much. Pretty much with all clubs that you're hitting off the turf, your weight distribution is going to be balanced, even. And that includes, the shots that you're talking about from 95 to 125. I wouldn't put a distinction on those and really complicate things. It's just not necessary. The ball position, a little bit back for wedges, so kind of the middle of your stance, a little bit forward of that for pretty much any other shot that's off the turf. If you're hitting a hybrid 3-wood, you can play a little bit more forward 2 balls ahead of the middle is completely fine. That'll help you come in a little bit more shallow, get the ball in the air a little bit easier. And then for the driver, I like straight down from the lead shoulder. That puts the ball in a really, really good position there. Ball forward or ball back of that, if that works better for you, then do that. So basically, that's what it comes down to, and you're pretty much balanced with all of them. You're in 6 to 8 degrees angled away with all of them. You can be more on the angled away side when you're using your driver because you're trying to hit up on the golf ball. You can be a little bit more on the vertical side when you're using a wedge because you're trying to hit more down on the ball. If you're trying to hit fades or draws, putting the ball back in your stance a little bit can help you to hit a draw a little bit easier because the club's working more from the inside. And hitting the ball or putting the ball a little bit more forward in your stance can help you make fades, hit fades a little bit easier because the club will be working to the left or out to in a little bit as it's coming to the golf ball. You can get that to happen more easily if it's a little bit further up in your stance. If you're trying to hit a low kind of shot, having it a little bit further back in your stance can make it easier. If you're trying to hit a higher shot, having it forward in your stance can make it a little bit easier. So that's basically the times when you want to change your ball position. So I hope that helps. Gordon F. says, in starting the downswing video, Clay has the player shifting weight to the lead foot as the backswing finishes, but in the slow clear and the how to clear the hips video at the top, he has knee bend, having trouble how to put it all together. So that's how you get the hips opening up, is because you get the pressure. So this is one issue why people have the, trouble getting the hips opening up. It's one part of it. There could be lots of other parts of it that you may be struggling with, but this is one part of it, is that they don't get a proper weight shift. So they don't get the weight shifting to the lead side. So they're at the top of the swing, and they have no momentum going in this direction at all. And if you do that, you start down with the arms, it's too late. And now you're getting your weight shift. The arms have already started, and they're already racing in front of your body, and you can't open up the hips. So what you want to do is, as you're going up the top, this last part of the backswing, you want to get some momentum moving forward so that when you start that downswing, now I've got pressure in my lead foot, and now I can push into the ground and get my body to rotate open. Otherwise, that pressure is going to be on your back foot still, and the arms are racing in front. It's too late. So work on that step drill, and that's going to help you to not only get the weight shift at the right time, which is really going to help you with your ball striking and so on and so forth, but it's also going to help you to get the body opening up, to get the swing sequencing properly in the downswing. So if you're not familiar, folks, if the video that he's talking about, or at least the one that I believe he's talking about, there's a few videos out there where Clay talks about how to start the downswing. But the one that I'm thinking of that has a step drill in it, which is one that I highly recommend, it's called How to Start the Downswing. If you just search the word downswing on the website, so on the website, there is a search engine in the upper right-hand corner. There's a little search window, and it says search this website. If you just put downswing in there, click search, you'll get some results there. And it works really well. If you're looking for anything, like anything for any particular, so slicing, let's say you're looking for something on slicing, you could literally just type the word slice in there and you'll get a bunch of videos on slicing, hooking, whatever it might be. So I'd recommend using that if you're ever looking for something specific. It works really well. But when you search downswing, if you go on the 4th video down, it's got some yellow lettering in there. That's where the video is I'm thinking of. I think that's the one that Gordon's talking about. It's called How to Start the Downswing. Clay talks about the step drill in there, which is it's the best weight shift drill out there is. There's really no, if you're struggling with your weight shift, you have to do this drill. It's really, really important that you do this drill. There's like I said, there's really no other that I know of anyway. It's the best weight shift drill that I've come across. And the reason is because if you do the drill, it forces you to get your weight shifting. You don't have any choice. You're battling gravity essentially if you don't. So highly recommend you take a look at that drill if you're struggling with your weight shift or getting proper sequencing in the downswing. All right, so Charles L. says, in the Stable Fluid Spine series, you tilt sideways, but is the amount of tilt the same with every club in the bag? So Charles, as I alluded to with that first question there that we had, it can be. You just need to be 6 to 8 degrees tilted away. So like I said, you can be Typically what you'll see with tour players is they'll tend to be a little bit more angled away for like your driver, and then a little bit more vertical for a wedge. Like you're more vertical, a little bit more vertical. So you might be in that 6-degree range with a wedge, and that 8-degree range with a driver. That's basically where it goes. But that's not something I would just focus on. Just getting angled away. Just get angled away at rest. I wouldn't focus on getting one more degree angled away or one more degree this way. It's not going to be that important. What you want to do is just get angled away to begin with, because then that will make it easier to be angled away at the top, and being more angled away at the top will make it easier to be more angled away as you're coming into contact. That's the whole reason why we want you to get in that angled away position at address, is to make it easier to be more consistent in the swing and be in that angled away position at contact. All right, so go ahead and get your questions posted in here. We'll say we got one here from Elliot P. Elliot P says, I play to a 7 handicap, and I've been working to eliminate going across the line at the top of my backswing. My practice and mirror swings are on point. Unfortunately, I can't seem to replicate that when hitting a ball, as I rely heavily on timing and hand manipulation to save the shot. Any suggestions and feels or remedy this undesired move? So here's a big reason why we do things differently in a practice swing than we do when we hit the golf ball. When we hit the golf ball, we are doing things in the swing that allow us that allow us to hit the ball in the center of the face, allow us to hit the ball with a square club face, allow us to hit it with speed, allow us to hit it with a on plane swing, allow us to hit it with all sorts of things. So basically, we're doing things in our swing to allow us to hit a good shot. When you're hitting a practice swing, or when you're taking a practice swing, none of those things matter because you're not hitting a golf ball. So you're able to establish the movement that you're trying to create without doing any of that. So if you look at your swing on video, most likely what you'll see is that you may see the club face completely open as you're going through contact. You may see the club striking the ground 6 inches before where the golf ball would be. You may see your club path being completely way off, swinging way too much from the inside, and so on and so forth. You may see things that if the golf ball was there, it would end up being a really, really terrible shot. So that's my best advice is whenever you're working on things that are in a practice swing that you're trying to translate to a real swing, when you're working on a specific movement that you are not comfortable with and you don't know how to hit the golf ball with yet, you have to perform that movement without any regard for what happens with the golf ball. You cannot care about what happens with the golf ball initially. Eventually, you do need to care, but initially, you cannot care what happens with the golf ball. So if your goal is to not go across the line at the top, and you see in your practice swing that you're not going across the line, you're able to do everything perfectly right, then you go to the golf ball and you don't do it, then that means that when you go to the golf ball, you have to get into this position at the top that you know how to do, and be able to swing at a golf ball and have no regard for what happens with the golf ball. You just have to focus on what's happening with that club at the top of your swing to not go across the line. That's what you have to focus on, and that only. And then once you are, that's the only thing that matters at that point. It does not matter if you shank it. It does not matter if you miss the golf ball. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is that you get into that position by any means necessary. You get into that position. Even if it means that you swing at 50% at first, 50% speed, you get in that position by any means necessary. So once you were able to get into that position with the golf ball there, then it's just trying to step it up from there. So let's say you started out and you were able to get it at 50% speed. So now your goal after that is just to go faster than 50% speed when you're working on this with the club and the ball. Once you get that, then you try to get to where you're at full speed with it. And you'll notice that you'll probably have a tendency when you hit the golf ball. Maybe you shank it every time. Maybe you chunk it. Then the goal is to do this and not chunk it or not hit it way off the toe. Your goal is to fix whatever the issue is at impact as you're performing it. And as you get more comfortable with the movement and being able to control what's going on at contact, that's when it starts to ingrain and starts getting better and better. So this process, it's not, as you can imagine, it's not a quick process. Changing your technique is something that takes a lot of time and effort, especially if you've been doing something in your swing forever and you're trying to get rid of it. That's why it's really, really important that you work on the things that matter the most in the golf swing. So when you got to look at, I don't know what's going on with your contact, but it's important to work from contact out or to work on the pieces of the Top Speed Golf system, because the pieces of the Top Speed Golf system, these are the pieces of the swing that everyone needs to be doing. And that's going to help you hit the ball better. So there's 5 pieces there. Those are the most important things. The going across the line at the top, there's lots of tour players that go across the line at the top and are playing at a high level. John Daly being one of them. I'm trying to think of a ton of players, but basically there are a lot of players that go across the line at the top. Freddie Couples goes way across the line at the top. So there's all kinds of players that go across the line at the top. It doesn't mean that you can't play good golf. So I would, I think a lot of people fall into this trap of they see something in their swing that they've heard is not good. So across the line at the top, flying right elbow, cupped lead wrist, whatever it might be. They're seeing all these things in their swing, and they know that they've heard that you can't do that in your swing. So they just try to fix that thing, and they spend a month trying to fix that thing. And since it's not tied to anything that's happening at impact, they have no idea if it's actually helped them or not. And a lot of times it can actually hurt you because you're working on something that you don't know how to do. So your contact's going to get, it's going to become detrimental to your contact. So what I'd recommend doing is either work on the pieces of the Top Speed Golf system or look at whatever's going on at contact, like the worst thing that's going on at contact. So think about your big miss. If your big miss is a chunk, then I would look at technique pieces in your swing that are causing you to chunk it. If going across the line is one of those, then work on that. But most likely, if you're chunking, it's going to be weight shift is the issue. If it's let's say that it's hitting it off the heel. It might be that you aren't rotating your hips and using your lower body. You're moving your spine, you're moving your hips toward the golf ball in the downswing. That could be what's going on. So fixing that would help you hit it more in the center of the face. So a lot of you want to look at what's going on at contact, whether it's your strike location, your ground contact, where you're striking the ground in relation to the ball, your face angle, the direction the club face is pointing at contact, or your club path, the direction the club is moving through impact. So that'd be an out to in swing, or in to out swing. Looking at those things, your speed is another one. If you're struggling with distance, you want to work on your club head speed and get those up there. So you want to look at what's going on at contact and work from that direction. Otherwise, you may waste a lot of time working on things in your swing that aren't going to help you. Now, if your goal is just to have a really aesthetically pleasing kind of swing where, you're not going across the line, if that's your goal, is just to have a swing that looks good and you don't care about how well you play, then sure, work on the across the line or so on and so forth. But the key to working on technique is that when you go to hit the golf ball, once you're able to get it in a practice swing, when you go to hit the golf ball, you have to not care what happens with the golf ball. And then eventually, once you start getting comfortable with the movement and hitting the golf ball, no matter what happens with the golf ball, then you can focus on what's going on with the golf. You're making it more difficult. That's how you fix anything, is you fix something specific, you make it measurable. So measurable would be you look on camera and you see if you're across the line or not, and then you make it increasingly more difficult as you work on it. If you start with something and you just try to get this club in a perfect position at the top and then hit a perfectly pure shot, then that's starting way too difficult. You're basically trying to run before you can walk. You got to get it in a practice swing first, and then you got to get it at full speed in a practice swing, and then you have to look at your practice swing and make sure and look at that and say, okay, if there was a golf ball there, would I hit it good? And then if the answer is yes, then you try to hit the golf ball. And then when you hit the golf ball, you can't care about what happens with the golf ball initially. You just got to try to make a swing and make it happen with the golf ball there. And then once you start getting more comfortable with that, then you make the adjustments that you need to make to be able to perform the action and be able to hit the golf ball. So That's what it takes to change technique. I equate it to learning how to type. If you're learning how to type, when you first started learning how to type, you were probably looking at the keyboard and pointing and pecking with all your fingers there, or with your pointer fingers, and you were really, really slow. And then you started memorizing where all the keys were, or where all the letters were, and you got a little bit faster. And then you learned how to get the fingers on the keyboard correctly, so that fingers can be trying to get the next key, and you can go a little bit faster. And then all your fingers had to learn a job that they had to do to type a certain letter. And then you started getting faster with that over time, right? A lot of repetition, a lot of mistakes, so on and so forth. You probably hit the backspace key a lot. And then eventually you got faster with that. And then eventually you got to where you didn't even have to look at the keyboard at all. You knew where all the letters were. And then eventually you got in a place where you were even thinking of individual letters when you were typing. You were thinking in words, individual words. And then you got to where you were thinking instead of words into whole sentences. So I bet you when you typed this question, you don't remember typing the word ball. I bet you don't remember typing that. It just happened as you were kind of thinking it through. That's what it's like to change swing technique in the golf swing. It's happening so fast, especially something in the downswing. It's happening so fast that you don't have time to sit there and think, oh, I need to, I'm up here. I can't be across the line, and you get it in the right place. You don't have time to think about that. You have to train your body to do it, just like you trained your body and your hands and your brain to learn how to type. So that's how it works. So that's what I'd recommend doing. Understand that it's a cycle, and I'd make sure that if you're working on going across the line, because it's such a process like that, to make it truly ingrained, to make sure that it's something that's actually helping your golf game or actually helping you to reach your goals, is what I'd recommend. All right, so Charles, he was talking about the sound. So good, glad the sound is good. So Robert B says, Q, I watched Clay's D012 video. I don't have all the videos memorized on the website. There are hundreds and hundreds of them, but I think I'm familiar with this one you're talking about, golf flip versus release, which exactly described my cause of early lag release as a right side stick swinger my whole life. I have a dominant right side. I think drastic measures are needed with me to kill my death grip with the right hand and forearm. Know of any golf swing devices to force lag to last instant? So no, I don't. I would actually recommend to not use anything that kind of forces you to be in a position. And the reason for that, excuse me, the reason for that is that they've actually done studies where using any kind of aid doesn't really help you in learning. Not any kind of way, but an aid that forces you to be in a position. So basically, just to talk about one of the studies, they had this study where you had to, I think you took like a laser and you had to follow something with the laser. And what they did was they worked with people, and they actually put a robotic arm and attach it to their arm, and the robotic arm put them in the right places to make it perfect as they went. And then they did one where they had to follow it on their own, and they had no aid of this robotic arm. It was just all freehand. They had to do it completely on their own. Well, as you imagine, as they were using the aid, the person who had the robotic arm did really, really good, but the person who didn't did really, really terrible. Well, they tested them again, and the person who had the robotic arm had to do it freehand now, and they did really, really bad. They had no idea what to do, and the person that did it who did it freehand initially and actually learned how to do it themselves did much better. So that's why it's not good to use. I don't think it's good to use training aids that would force you to be in a position, because it doesn't. It's not how the brain works. You don't just magically get in this position and then your brain learns how to do that. You have to actually learn how to get into that position to make that happen. So what I would actually recommend doing is go to our Top Speed Lag course and work through the drills, work through the drills. And like I said before, it takes time to ingrain these movements. It's not, if you're flipping or if you're releasing this club, meaning you're really, really casting this club from the top of the swing here to begin with, then it's going to take some time to really, really ingrain those movements as you're going along. And as you're doing it, like I said with, who was it, Elliot, you have to not care what happens with the golf ball initially. That doesn't mean that you can't go play good golf. Keep your practice tee and your first tee separate. When you go out on the first tee, just try to hit as good a golf shots as you can. Be confident in the swing that you're bringing out there. But when you're practicing and you're practicing a certain technique, that's king. The technique is king. Get the technique right and then get the striking right after that. So that's what I'd recommend doing. There's no magic or anything that I can tell you. It takes time. Excuse me. There's a reason why we tell you 3,000 reps. It's not because we're trying to keep you busy or anything like that. It's because that's what it takes. You think about how long it takes to learn how to type, how many repetitions that it took you to learn how to type the Y correctly. You know, a lot of times when you're typing, you figure you got trouble with certain letters, right? And you get the letters that you type most frequently, those come pretty easily. And then you have trouble with like the Z, right? Or the Q. You know, I don't have trouble with the Q because I have to use it to spell my name all the time. But if your name's not Quentin, you probably have a hard time getting that Q right sometimes. You don't type it very well. So that's why I recommend working on the pieces of your swing that matter the most. Lag is a big one. So that would be one that I would be putting some time into to get right, because that's going to help you to get more speed. That's going to help you to sequence properly. It's going to help you to get some forward shaft lean at contact. There's all kinds of great benefits from working on that. And it's something that all tour players do. There's no tour players that don't. You just have to work on it in the right way, which is what you do in the top speed lag section on the course. To get to that course, go to the, click the house icon. That's going to, at the top of the page there's a little house. If you click on that, that's going to take you to the home page. On the home page, you'll see there's all the courses. If you scroll down, you'll see all the courses there. Click on the top speed lag course and get started there and stick with it. And go through it, and your lag will get better. It's not something that's going to happen in a couple range sessions. It's going to take some reps to get through there and to make it second nature for you. All right, so Charles Ed says, any tips on 3-wood off the deck? At one point, I was hitting it solid, but lately can't seem to get airborne. So it's hard to say, Charles, without seeing your swing or seeing what's going on with you and particularly with the 3-wood. But when I see people having trouble hitting their woods off of the turf, it's almost always because they're playing the ball way too far forward in their stance. So if we'll just pretend that this is a 3-wood here. If this was a 3-wood, let me angle this down. All right, so if I have my ball right here, oftentimes I see people play their 3-wood like the same place that they would play their driver, straight just inside the lead foot or straight down from the lead shoulder. They'll have that ball way too far forward in the stance. And when you do that and you've got to hit ball first contact, a lot of times you'll be coming in and the club will be bottoming out right here, and then it'll be on the way up into the golf ball. And when it's on the way up into the golf ball, you're hitting the ball on the lower part of the face, most likely when it's on the turf, because the ball's just not high enough to get underneath it. So you hit, a really low kind of shot. So to get that to where you're getting that ball first contact, you got to play it. Typically, what I like to play with fairway woods or hybrids is I'll play it in the just a ball forward of where I would play like my 8-iron. So my 8-iron would be straight down from the lead here. That's just a little bit ahead of the middle of my stance. I would maybe play it a ball forward of that. So that's it. And that's going to help me to get this ball first contact to be able to hit down and through the ball. When you're hitting a shot off the turf, you have to hit down on the ball a little bit. Your average tour player is going to hit about 3 degrees down on their 3-wood. That's typically what's going on there. And that's not very much. That's still pretty shallow. If you think about 1 minute on the clock, that's about 6 degrees. That's half of a minute on the clock. That's a small sliver, but it's still down on the golf ball. If you're hitting it really low, you're most likely hitting up on the golf ball because you're playing it too far forward in your stance. I would take a look at that on video and see what's going on, but that's what I would imagine what's going on there. Without seeing your swing, that would be my guess. All right, so David H says, last weekend seemed like every iron was a toe shot, so much so I was playing for a low hook. What would be a good drill to eliminate toe shots? This might seem very, very trivial, but the easiest way is to try to hit the ball off the heel. Intentionally try to hit the ball off the heel. Because what was going on was you were trying to hit the ball on the center of the face, and the reality of what was going on is that you hit it on the toe. So you need to adjust your reality to get the I can't talk today. The required result that you want, to get the desired result that you want. So that would mean if you're trying to hit it here and you actually hit it here, then try to hit it here so that you actually hit it here. That's what you'd be trying to do. I know that might seem weird to intentionally try to hit it off the heel. Why would you do that? It's so that you can adjust your reality to get the desired result that you want. So that's what I would recommend doing. Go out there, intentionally try to strike it off the heel to get that strike more in the center of the face. Now, if you actually get the ball on the heel, then that just means you overdid the feeling a little bit, and all you have to do is ease off of it. If you still hit the ball out on the toe, then I would exaggerate that feeling even more. I would try to feel like, get out of your comfort zone. Try to feel like you're hitting the ball off the hosel. Hit it, exaggerate as much as you need to get that strike more in the center of the face. And you have to keep doing that. I actually, a funny story, I was playing golf with somebody, and they were having the kind of the same issue. They kind of swing over the top, and they hit it off, and they were hitting it off the toe every single time. So it was this really low hook that wasn't going anywhere. And I told him on the next shot, I was like, try to hit that ball off the hosel. I told him, and then he hit it, and he smoked it, hit it right in the center of the club face. And then we went to the next hole, and I figured he would do the same thing, after he hit it in the center of the club face, and he went right back to what he was doing before. He hit it way off the toe, low hook, and I was like, hey, did you try to hit it off the heel that time? He's like, oh, no. He's like, I just tried to hit it off the center. I was like, you have to keep doing it until your feel is adjusted back. So you can't assume that you're calibrated. Once you get one in the center of the face, you can't assume that you're calibrated. You have to keep striking it in the heel until you actually that's your reality, until it becomes your reality. And then once it becomes your reality, at that point, then you're essentially calibrated, and you can start hitting it off the center of the club face again. So that's what I'd recommend doing. If you're looking for some setup adjustments, if you're hitting on the toe, maybe you're standing too far away from it, you can stand a little bit closer to it, make it a little bit easier. Another thing that you can do is if you're hitting it on the toe and you're trying to hit it more in the center of the face, because I feel like you're kind of more in your heels as you're coming through instead of out on your toes. Feel like you're more in your heels a little bit as you're coming through to move that strike. Or sorry, you feel like you're more in your toes a little bit, then move that strike more. If you're hitting in the toe, you want to feel like you're more in your toes as you're coming into contact. I was thinking of the opposite sense. Sorry about that. So just to reiterate, if you are hitting the ball off the toe, that's because your club's too far away, from the golf ball. So feeling like you're more in your toes as you're coming into contact can help you to get the ball more in the center of the face. So those are a couple of things that can help you do that. But adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want usually does the trick. So back to Ritaparn S, and sorry again if I'm mispronouncing your name. That's the one that I haven't seen before. So says, while starting your backswing, till how long the club head moving close to ground? I mean, till it passes knee right of leg or a bit more, and a grip pressure on a scale of 1 to 10, i.e. very soft dead grip. I need to read your question. I'm not exactly sure. While starting your backswing, till how long the club head be moving close to ground? I mean, till it passes knee of right leg a bit more, and the grip pressure on a scale of 1 to 10, very soft dead grip. So he's asking, when does the club leave the ground? So basically, I think he's asking, like, when does the club start moving away from the ground? I would say, it's going to start moving from the ground right away. It's kind of subjective the way that you think about that, but it's going to start I mean, would you consider this to be, if I'm going back and have a nice wide takeaway, would you consider that to be close to the ground right there? I mean, this is basically where you want it to be. As your hands are about pocket height here, as the club is about pocket height, that's about when you want that club parallel to the ground. So you see I'm right about pocket height here, a little about waist height. That club's parallel to the ground. That's a good position to be in. That means that you're getting a nice wide takeaway. If you're going like this, then now my club's at thigh height here, and my club's parallel to the ground. I'm just picking the club up. So I would try to feel like it's nice and low and slow, and you're getting a nice wide takeaway, and that's going to help you to get the shoulders more involved in the swing. That's going to help you get in this position right there. So that's how I answer that. As far as grip pressure is concerned, at address, you want to be, about 2 out of 10, pretty relaxed. But as the club goes back, you're going to need to put more force into the handle as you're going back. So probably by the time you're at this point in the swing, it's probably more of a 4 out of 10. And then you're at here is probably more of a 6 out of 10. And then as you're coming down, it might be, at a 6 out of 10. And as you're coming through contact, it's probably going to be like a 10 out of 10 as you're coming out of contact. So I get this all the time. What should the pressure be throughout the swing? And basically, there's no set. The pressure, the force that you're putting into the handle is not the same throughout the swing. Basically, the easiest way to answer that question is that it should be as light as you possibly can be, while still being able to control and hold on to the grip. So if you are holding the club at a 2 out of 10 as you're starting this downswing, that club's going to fly out of your hand. You're not putting enough force into the handle. So you've got to put enough force into the handle to be able to hold on to the club and get speed. And ideally in the downswing, where you like to feel that force in the handle is in these first 3 fingers of your lead hand. So if you're right-handed, that'd be your left hand, right hand, or if you're left-handed, that'd be your right hand. So what you want to feel is these first 3 fingers, that's where you're putting that pressure, and that's going to create a fulcrum, which is going to make it easier to whip that club through contact. So that's what I'd recommend there. There's actually a great video on the website if you want to see kind of a crazy detail on grip pressure throughout the swing. If you go to the top of the page there's an instruction tab. If you hover your mouse over the instruction tab, it'll expand a menu. And then you can go click on Vault Categories. When you go to Vault Categories, you'll see one that's crazy detail. It's in alphabetical order. I think it's in the 2nd row when you go in there. But it's called Crazy Detail Vault. When you click on that, you'll see all kinds of crazy detail videos. There's one that's about grip pressure. I'd recommend that one if you want to see more of a detailed version of what I talked about grip pressure throughout the swing. So go ahead and get your questions on here. Like I said, I'll be on here for another 20 minutes. So go ahead and get your questions, and we'll continue to answer them. So Robert B says, am I understanding the downswing initiation right? Rotation does not begin when the weight starts to shift. Body rotation coiling starts when more weight is on the left foot. That's not correct. No, you're going to have some rotation as you're coming down. So as you're shifting your weight, there's going to be a little bit of rotation. What drives the rotation, the rest of the rotation, is when you're getting pressure in that lead foot and you're starting to rotate your body open. If you stay on this back foot, it's going to be hard to get that body to rotate because you're not going to have enough pressure on that lead foot, which is going to help you to push your lead hip back and up. If you're on your trail hip here, it's going to be hard to push and get the hip to open up. You got to have that pressure in your lead foot pushing back and out of the way. So there's going to be a little bit of rotation as you're going forward. You're going to have a little bit of rotation. The best thing you can do is go watch tour players. Go watch videos on YouTube of tour players, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Look at that face on and down the line view. You'll see as they're getting that momentum, as they're starting, as the backswing is finishing up and they're getting that momentum going to their lead side, you're going to see there's a little bit of rotation there, and that's before they're getting a lot of pressure in that lead foot. And then once they get a lot more pressure in that lead foot, that's what really drives the rest of the rotation as you're coming through there. So go ahead and post your questions in there. If you have any more questions, we'll be on here for another 20 minutes. until 10 a.m. Eastern time. Until then, I'll be checking my email until we get another question. So I'll be right back. Hopefully you guys got another question for me before I get back. So just a second here. All right. I'm back. All right. So, Jan Marie says, would you demonstrate the hips movement in the backswing? So in the backswing, your hips are rotating back. So here I'm going up. My hips are rotating back. Average hip turn on tour is going to be about 49 degrees in the backswing here. So if we're talking, this would be 0. That would be 49 degrees. If we look from this angle, that'd be 0. That'd be about 49 degrees. That's what you're going to see the average on tour. Now, that doesn't mean you have to get exactly 49 degrees. Maybe your hip turn, whatever you're capable of, is 49 degrees. Maybe you're capable of 55 degrees. But that's generally the average of what you're going to see on tour with hip turn. So that's basically what you see there. It's about a 49 degree turn. If I had more momentum going this way, I can kind of show you how much of a shoulder turn I can get. But basically, I'm usually getting a little more than 90. So I'm usually about in this area right here. And then as you're going up here, you're getting that weight shift, and you're starting to get a little bit of rotation. Now, some people will be able to get more than others because they're able to get more of a separation of the hips and the shoulders. Some people may not have, a lot of that hip rotation in the start of the downswing. Some people may have to wait until they get to that driving point in the downswing. But for the most part, you're going to see that hip rotation is starting a little bit as they're starting the downswing and getting that to open up. So I wish I had more room in here to be able to show that in more detail, but that's basically what's going on there. The best way to look at it is just to go look at tour players. Now, you may not be as flexible as tour players, so you may not be able to get that change a little bit that they get, that separation, but you can just do the best that you can for sure. So Robert B says, Hugh, before I watched Clay's left arm in crazy detail, I was being tortured with back downswing transition problems. They were killing my shots. Now, a few degrees more rotation of the lead arm, and the backswing has cured a lot of this. But now, the club looks pretty laid off on the top, almost horizontal. Am I in the danger zone here, or in the danger zone there? No, I mean, if you're hitting good golf shots, then you're in good shape. As long as so you're saying you're kind of in this position here where it's kind of laid off instead of being maybe like that. Yeah, that's completely fine. If you're a little bit more laid off, excuse me, if you're a little bit more laid off, that can make it a little bit easier to get the club to shallow out and to be on plane. You could be, it's hard to say without seeing your swing, but you could be where you're swinging too much under plane. So I don't killing my shots. There are a lot of ills, but now the club looks pretty laid off at the top. All right, so if you're hitting a lot of hooks, I'd maybe try to be a little bit less laid off at the top because that can cause you to swing too much under plane, or maybe I try to feel like you're rotating more through impact. It's just really hard to say without seeing your swing. I don't want to give you advice that's not going to be right on exactly what works best for you. But hey, if you're getting good feedback, or you're hitting the ball well, you're hitting the ball much better, that's a good indication that you're on the right track. That's the only thing that matters, folks. The only thing that matters is contact, is impact. That is it. That is the only thing that's the end all be all. You can have perfect technique, do everything exactly right. Your swing can look like Adam Scott, just a perfect picture, of a golf swing. Most people, a lot of tour players, when they ask what golf swing do they admire the most, a lot of them say Adam Scott, right? So your swing could look like Adam Scott, but if you don't hit the ball in the center of the face, if you don't hit the ball with a square club face, if you don't swing on plane, and if you don't make ball first contact, you are not going to hit a good golf shot. It doesn't matter how good your technique is. You're not going to hit a good golf shot. That's why tour players don't hit good golf shots sometimes. That's why they don't hit their best golf shots sometimes, because their face was a little off, or their path was a little off, or they chunked it just a little bit, or they thinned it. That impact is the thing that happens that matters the most. Now here's the contrary. You can have absolutely terrible technique. You can have a spine angle that's leaning toward the target. You can have a shoulder turn that's only halfway. You can cast the club. You can release the club early. You can bump out your hips. But if you hit the ball in the center of the face, you hit the ball with a square club face, you hit the ball when you swing on plane, and you make ball first contact, you're going to hit a good golf shot. So that's basically what it comes down to. You can have terrible technique, hit great golf shots. You can have perfect technique and hit terrible golf shots. The only thing that matters is contact. So if you're doing something in your swing and you're getting good contact, then you're on the right track. That's what you should be doing. That's how you should swing the club. So Charles S. says, Q, I was reading your response to a question about the power fade. You stated that you have a square stance and just hold the face of the club from rotating over. Is that still your approach? Yeah. So basically the only thing you need to happen, the main thing that you need to happen for the ball to fade is you need the face to be open to the path. So if you hold the face through contact and not roll it over, that's a way of getting the face open to the path. The reason why I don't like to cut across the ball is a lot of times it causes me to release the club early. So if I feel like I'm doing the same thing, or maybe even pushing my hands forward more, and I'm holding that face, that actually allows me to get more, that's an actual power fade, because I'm de-lofting the face a little bit more to make up for the loft that I'm adding to the face by opening it. So if the way to hit a fade is to open your face to the path, if I open the face, let me use a wedge here, it'll be easier to see. If I open the face, that adds loft. So there I am here. If I open the face, now I have more loft. So if I feel like I'm pushing my hands forward and holding the face open, now I can de-loft the face and have the face open to the path, and that allows me, now I have to aim more left. My feet aren't square to my target. I feel like my feet are square to my swing, and I'm holding the face open as I'm coming through. So I'm still swinging out to in compared to the target line, but and my face is pretty close to in line with the target line. But in comparison to my stance, I'm swinging in line with my stance. I'm pushing my hands more forward so I can get more forward shaft lean to make up for the amount that my face is open, and that allows me to hit more of a power fade. Hopefully that makes sense. That's basically how I do it. Like I said, the only thing that needs to happen for you to hit a fade is the face needs to be open to the path, and that's assuming center face contact and all that stuff. So there's no right or wrong way to do it as long as you are doing that. But that's the way that I do it. That's what works best for me. That's the shot that I use whenever I'm trying to kind of hit a hold off fade and have some power behind it. All right, so Jim G, it says, doing the practice where you hit low, medium, high, draw, straight, fade. Awesome. How do you do a high draw and a low fade? So high draw, I just play the ball more forward in my stance and try to feel like I'm more angled away and more behind the ball as I'm coming through. So again, to hit a draw, the face just has to be closed to the path. So to make that happen, if my regular shot's kind of like this, where I'm just slightly angled away from the target, I try to feel like I'm drawing the ball, but I'm more angled away as I'm coming through, and that's going to help me to hoist the ball up in the air. So that's your compression line. Sorry, my voice is very scratchy today. That's your compression line. So your compression line is going to go from your lead ankle, lead, your hip here, and then your shoulder. At contact, for a regular trajectory shot, basically I'm somewhere in that 2 to 3 degrees angled away position. If I'm trying to hit more of a lower shot, I might be in a little bit more of a vertical position. If I'm trying to hit more of a higher shot, I'm going to be more in an angled away position. That's going to help me to hoist the ball up in the air. So that's what I'd recommend doing. To hit a low fade, that's the toughest one. And that's just kind of what I just talked about, is I try to, again, get more forward shaft lean by really pushing my hands forward. And when you push the hands forward, for me, that helps me open up the face as well. Because the move, when you're coming through and you're doing the move, if I just push my hands forward, my face is open. But if I do the move, that's what squares up the face. So basically, I'm pushing my hands forward without turning the handle down. And that allows me to de-loft the face by getting more forward shaft lean. And that counteracts for the loft that you're adding to the club by hitting a fade that's open, with a face that's open to the path. So I just really try to feel like I'm more like this, like I'm really holding that face open and getting my hands and my body to open up more to hit that low fade shot. So that's what I'd recommend doing. So high shots, you're doing the same thing that you would do with a fade or a draw, but for a high shot, I'm getting more angled away. I'm feeling like I'm more behind it, and I'm trying to hoist the ball up in the air. I'm trying to come in really, really shallow. Instead of hitting down on the ball, I'm trying to come in really, really shallow and get the ball up in the air quite a bit. And then for lower shots, I try to feel like I'm coming down a little bit steeper, and I try to feel like my body's opening up more, and I'm really pushing my hands forward. And with a fade, I'm trying to hold off that face. If I'm trying to hit a draw, I'm trying to really turn that handle down as much as I can. So that's getting the face close to the path. So I'm really pushing my hands forward and turning that handle down as much as I can to get it to go low and draw. So give that a try the next time you work on that. That's a great drill. That's what I like to go work on, the 9 shot shapes when I go. I like to set up a little tic-tac board. So tic-tac board will have the 9 shots in there, and I count how many times it takes me to hit a perfect one. So that would be one where I hit it in the center of the face. It's a good solid shot. I get ball first contact. It goes, it has the trajectory that I want, whether it's low or fade or low and fade or whatever it might be. It matches the trajectory that I want, and it gets in the vicinity of the target that I'm going at. I count how many shots it takes me to hit a perfect one of those, what I'd consider to be perfect, and then I'll pick another one and start working on that one. And then what I'll do is I'll add it all up at the end. So I'll have all my high shots. I'll see how many it took me to get my high fade, my high straight, and my high draw. I'll see how many it took me to get all those, and then I'll add it up. And then when you go through there and you add all those up and you add everything up together, it kind of gives you an idea of what you struggle with. So if you add more, so maybe you got 3, 4, and 3 for your high shots, but then you got 7, 5, and 6 for your lower shots with your fade, draw, and straight shot. Let's say you did that. Well, that kind of tells you struggle a little bit more with the low trajectory shots versus the high trajectory shots. So I look at that and I see kind of what I struggle with, and then I use some of the rest of the time to focus on that, what that thing is. And I also think about what my misses were throughout. So my tendency is to hit it off the heel and thin a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll focus on hitting it low or hitting it higher on the face and more on the toe. Really focus on that to get that strike to be a little bit better. And then also focus on whatever piece that I struggled with the most. So usually for me, that's kind of the lower shot, the lower trajectory shots, although I'm getting better. So it's just a matter of picking what you're struggling with the most and putting more time in with those. And then with the last bit of range balls, 20, 30 balls, I like to play 9 holes in my head on the range. So I'll imagine the first hole in front of me of a course. Maybe I'm preparing for a tournament. Maybe I'm just wanting to play golf on a course that I like or something like that. I'll imagine that first hole in front of me. Let's say it's a 400-yard par four. And I got trouble on the left. Then what I'll do, that's a draw for me all day with the driver. So I'll go out there and I'll imagine that in front of me. I'll imagine aiming my draw down the right side of the fairway. And then I'll hit the shot. If I snap hook it and it goes way, way out of bounds, then I got to re-tee and I'm laying 3, right? So that's basically what I'm doing when I'm out there. I'm laying 2. I mean, that's what I'm doing. Or if I hit one slice way out to the right, then I'm in the woods and maybe I got to punch out and hit a pitch shot onto the green. If I hit one perfectly down the center and I'm 100 yards out, I hit a 300-yard drive perfectly down the center, then I'm hitting a wedge into the green. And once you imagine yourself hitting the ball on the green, you make all the putts. So you just pick up your ball and go on to the next one, right? So it's kind of a fun way, and it's a good way to help you translate what you're doing on the range to the golf course, because sometimes that's not the easiest thing. When we're on the range, we're continually, hitting the same shot over and over and over and over again. We get in a groove and we wonder why can't I do this out on the course? Well, on the course, you're not hitting a 9-iron over and over and over again at nothing. You're in a pressure situation. You don't have a perfect lie. You're switching clubs every time you hit the ball. There's all kinds of scenarios there that are different. So it's a good way to kind of help translate a little bit of what you're doing on the range to the golf course. So highly recommend that if you haven't given that a try. So if you got any last minute questions before the weekend, go ahead and post them on there. I'll be on here for another 2 minutes here. It's 2 till 10 right now. So if you got any last minute questions, go ahead and let me know. But thanks for joining me this week. We'll be back here Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. So Jim G had another question. It says, on chipping, usually mostly a putting stroke, would you recommend changing clubs based on ball flight or based on flight, roll ratio, or spend time getting really good with 1 or 2 clubs like a 7-iron? That is personal preference. I like to basically have, when I'm chipping or using kind of a chipping type stroke like what you're talking about, I basically have 4 clubs that I use. I use a wedge, I use a pitching wedge, an 8-iron, and a 5-iron. Most of the time what I use when I'm chipping is, depending on the course, but it's typically going to be a pitching wedge. Typically when I'm hitting a chipping type shot, but the courses I play are usually pretty firm. If you're playing in softer conditions, you may be hitting an 8-iron a lot of the time, or maybe it's a 9-iron for you is what you prefer. But that's what I do. Some people, they like to use all of the clubs, and they want to get it on the green and at a perfect, they want to get the ball on the green, 6 feet onto the green. They want to carry it 6 feet on the green, and they use whatever club gets them to there and rolling toward the hole. Whether that's a pitching wedge, a 7-iron, a 6-iron, they use all their clubs. I tried that for a little bit, and to me, it was just too inconsistent. If I were to able to practice that and to hone that in, it would maybe be a better way. But I just like to have good feel with a few clubs. That's the way that I like to do it. Some people like hit a wedge for everything. They just want to get good with 1 club and hit a wedge for all of those shots. And sometimes, if it's a longer shot, it basically turns into a pitch shot because there's just too much spin on it to allow it to roll out. So it's really to each their own. You got to find the part that works best for you. I basically do something in between there, is where I have 3 or 4 clubs that I use to chip with all the time. Mainly, I don't use my 5-iron very much. It'd be pretty rare. It's fairly, maybe one time per round, I would say, or 1 time every 2 rounds, I would say I'm using my 5-iron to chip. The only time I'd really use my 5-iron to chip is if I had a lot of green to work with, and there was just not a lot of undulations or anything like that, not a lot of breaks. It was just kind of like a straightforward shot, and all it is just controlling distance and hitting it at the hole. A 5-iron would be a good option there. But if it's a scenario where there's a lot of dips and holes up on a ridge, I'd rather just pitch it and carry it most of the way and have it stop closer to the hole with a wedge. That's just I'm better with that. But hey, if you're really good with controlling your distance with your 5-iron or hybrid or whatever you decide to use from that distance, then more power to you. Do that. So it's kind of personal preference kind of thing. But I just go out and practice it, see what works best for you. To me, the easiest way is just to have a good feel with, three or four clubs and use those all the time. Imagine the ball carrying onto the green to a certain point and how much it's going to roll out. That's basically what I think about. So I think about, I get on green, it's like, okay, well, if I use a pitching wedge here, where am I going to be able to land that and get it to roll out to the hole? And then if I see if that's like 1 foot onto the green, and I'll think, no, I want to land that a little bit further onto the green. So maybe I'll use like a 56 degree or a 58 degree and carry that a little bit further on the hole and let it roll out a little bit less. Or maybe I'm looking at it in, if I hit a pitching wedge here, I would have to carry this quite a bit of the ways on the green. I'd rather get it on the green and rolling a little bit sooner. So maybe I'll use in my 8 iron or even a 5 iron if it's if the hole is pretty far away to allow that to happen. In general, I like to see the ball carry at least 6 feet onto the green. Anywhere between 6 and 10 feet onto the green. I'm thinking that's where I want the ball to carry onto the green. If I can't get the ball to carry on the green and roll out, then I may use a wedge and hit more of a pitch shot with spin on it to get it to stop closer to the hole. So that's basically what I do. Hopefully that helps. But if you're looking for great drills on chipping and wedge play, we have our chipping mastery course, and we also have the wedge system. You can find both of those courses when you click on the house icon and scroll down on there and see all the courses on there. So again, everybody, thank you for joining me so much. I'll be back here Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, and I will see you all then. Janet, thank you for the kind words. Hopefully you all have a great rest of your day and weekend, and I will talk to you next time.